Hello, Jessica here. In this first week of the Draft It Essential 10-Week Workshop, we tackle the abstract, your roadmap to writing your journal paper. The abstract is a brief but comprehensive summary of your research paper. This will be the most important paragraph you write because readers will use it to decide if they want to read your paper. The abstract is typically only 150 to 200 words, but it describes a lot: the context and gap of your paper, your research topic, the methods, findings, and conclusion, and your argument. And sometimes it even provides recommendations. Now, many academic writers are of the mindset that the abstract should be written last, after the first full draft of the journal paper is complete. Why? Because it's easier to write after the fact. However, I argue that the abstract can provide a solid roadmap to writing your paper. It can serve to give you a view of the big picture, and you can use it to outline your paper, and you can come back to it when you feel like you've lost the thread or the point of your paper. Switching my process from writing the abstract after writing a paper to before has been immensely helpful, keeping me on track, and it's made me more efficient and effective as a writer. That being said, it's always necessary to come back to the abstract and revise it once the paper has been written, and we'll do that in week 10. But for now, I suspect you already have enough of an idea of what your paper will be about to draft an abstract. So let's get started. Sometimes we cannot see the forest for the trees. I want you to consider your abstract like a drone aerial view of your paper. You can come back to it anytime for a broad snapshot of your paper when you become entrenched in or overwhelmed in the writing details. The purpose of the abstract is to be a brief but comprehensive summary of your research paper. Averaging a mere 150 to 250 words, it is perhaps the most important paragraph you'll write in your paper. Readers will decide to download or pass on reading your paper simply based on the abstract. Some may even cite your paper simply based on this very brief paragraph. Now, there is a tendency and often a recommendation to wait until after a paper is written to write the abstract, which makes sense because it's meant to summarize what the paper is about, and of course, it's easier to write after the paper is written. However, I argue that an abstract can actually be easier to write before the paper is drafted, and it can become a clear roadmap on actually getting the paper written and can be used to structure and organize your paper. Let's talk a little bit about what abstracts can do for you. First, they can help clarify what your article is about when it's written first. An abstract can enable editors to make a quicker decision, particularly if it is clear, concise, and comprehensive. Your abstract can help entice busy peer reviewers, thereby getting reviewers on board quicker and getting your review back sooner. The abstract can assist readers in finding your paper more than the title alone and convince them to read it. And it can improve your citations, because many readers may never go past your abstract, yet they may still cite you, so it should be as good and accurate as possible. On the other hand, an abstract should not introduce the paper. It should summarize it. It should not describe data without an argument or conclusion. Really, it should tell a story. It should not lack an argument or claim of significance. An abstract should not hide the most important findings. This is where all the spoilers should be included. An abstract should not let the methods take up more than a sentence or two, and it should state rather than describe the methods and any main theory applied. The abstract should not use vague verbs. It should argue, demonstrate, show it. An abstract should not exclude key words that can help readers find your paper in searches. It shouldn't include anything that isn't self-explanatory. It should use common scientific language that a broad, educated readership will understand. This is especially important if you expect an interdisciplinary audience. An abstract should not be written in anything but past tense. And then finally, it should not include footnotes, citations, quotations, acronyms, abbreviations, or symbols. Any of these should be spelled out. Now that I've described what abstracts should and shouldn't do, let's talk a little bit about what actually goes into summarizing the abstract. First, you should cover the context or background information for your research. This is the general topic under study, the specific topic of your research. Second, include the central questions or a statement of the problem your research addresses. Third, identify what's already known about this question, what previous research has done or shown. Fourth, include the main reasons, the exigency, the rationale, the goals for your research. Why is it important to address these questions? Are you, for example, examining a new topic? Why is that topic worth examining? Are you filling a gap in previous research? Applying new methods to take a fresh look at existing ideas or data? Resolving a dispute within the literature in your field? Be clear about what your reasoning is. Fifth, your research and your analytic methods should be clear. Sixth, your main findings, results, or arguments should be clear. And then finally, what is the significance or implications of your findings or arguments? So, in summary, good social science abstracts state why you initiated the project. This is often some reference to a gap or debate in the literature or a persistent social or scientific problem. The abstract should state what your project or study was about, the topic of the paper, should state how you did the project, your methodology, should state what you found through the project, your findings, should state what conclusions you draw from the project, your argument, and some abstracts also include recommendations, but these are not necessary. Thus, to simplify, in outlining your abstract, satisfy these items. State the motivation, state the topic, state the methodology, state the findings, state the conclusions, and then decide if you're going to include recommendations. If you answer each of these 5 to 6 items, your abstract will write itself. Here is example 1 from the Journal of Social Science and Medicine. I suggest you hit the pause button and read the abstract. Then when you're finished, unpause and I will continue to the critique. The first sentence of this abstract succinctly summarizes the background. The second sentence introduces the problem, which also points to the topic of the paper. The third sentence describes the methods, including research design, analytical approach, sample, and context. It does a lot of heavy lifting with a few words. In this abstract, the authors take up 3 sentences to summarize the findings, and 3 sentences to summarize the discussion and the conclusion. It is in this final section where they insert the core argument of the paper. Example 2 comes from the Geography Compass journal. Press pause to read it. In this example, the background is a brief first sentence. The problem statement, on the other hand, comprises half the abstract. To accommodate the journal's word limit for the abstract, in this case, the authors combine the methods, findings, and discussion conclusion in one final sentence. In this example, the authors identify a research gap. This is in lieu of their core argument. This third example is from the Journal of Asian Sociology. Press pause to read it. In this example, half of the abstract is dedicated to summarizing the background topic. The next two sentences summarize the topic and methods respectively. The last two sentences summarize the findings and the implications. The authors in this case do not state a research gap, argument, or objective, which leaves the reader a little unsure on the significance of the contribution of this study. Example 4 was published in the Journal of Environment and Planning B, Urban Analytics and City Science. Press pause to read it. In this abstract, the background is summarized in the first sentence. The topic and methods are summarized in the next two sentences and include the statistical models, which serve as important keywords for database searching. Approximately half of the abstract is dedicated to describing the findings. The last two sentences summarize the discussion and conclusion. What is interesting is that the final conclusion seems to contradict the initial background sentence. From my perspective, the authors missed an opportunity to articulate this key finding into a core argument. Example 5 is from the Journal of Sustainability. Press pause to read it. In this abstract, the background is summarized in the first sentence. In this case, the problem and methods are combined and take up half the abstract. This could be intentional, or it could be that another round of revision is needed to improve the organization and clarity of this abstract. Then, the authors jump to the discussion and conclusion without summarizing key findings. Despite omitting the key evidence resulting from the research investigation, the authors do provide an, albeit very long, core argument. Example 6 is from the Journal of Housing Studies. Press pause to read it. In this abstract, the authors succinctly provide the background and problem in the first sentence. They then succinctly provide the methods in the next sentence. More than half of this abstract is reserved to describe the findings. The discussion and conclusion are summarized in the final half of the last sentence. While not explicit, it can be implied that the argument comprises the last part of the conclusion. I hope you are able to see the common elements from these example abstracts. I encourage you to dissect papers under your own topic with a similar critical approach. Keep in mind this abstract guide. First, what is the background or problem? What is the gap or real-world situation or debate in the literature? Have objectives or aims been clearly stated? What is the topic and main objective or argument? What about the method or research design? What was the research design and data sample? What about results findings? What were key findings? What is the discussion or conclusion of the study? What are the important outcomes or implications? Then, are there any optional recommendations related to policy, something practical or theoretical? Finally, what are keywords? List keywords that in your own abstract that you want to include as search terms. Here are some tips to guide you as you craft or redraft your abstract. For grammar and style, passive voice is okay for an abstract, but avoid use of first person. Write in past tense. Unless you're stating facts, then those can be in present tense. Don't use two words when one is sufficient. Avoid repetition. Say it one time only. Remember, you have very little space. Avoid jargon or any terms that require definitions. Avoid abbreviations, acronyms, or symbols. Be general and be specific. State your research design and key objectives. If applicable, include your sample size. If referenced, include p-values or any statistical values. If the paper is about applying a specific theory, concept, method, or statistical test, state it. These could be important keywords. Avoid long definitions and conceptual descriptions. Some other tips. No footnotes or citations. Include as many keywords as relevant without jargon and without being too inaccessible. And then include the geographic location unless it is irrelevant. Now it's time to write or rewrite your abstract. Remember, this is a snapshot of your entire paper with spoilers included. This is the end of the video. Here are references and resources.